Welcome into Rogue Football. I'm your host, Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here today. We have got our Jacksonville Jaguars 2024 7-round mock draft. I cover the Jaguars, been following the team since I was a small child, so this is a special one for me. If you're interested in more Jags content, you can go check out the Generation Jaguar, Gen Jag YouTube page. Look, fired up to get into this one. Josh Allen, he inked his deal with the Jaguars today. 5 years, $150 million, one of the highest paid edge players in the league now. Huge for the Jags, huge for Josh Allen. I think that deal is going to clear up some cap space. How much cap space remains to be seen, but he was going to be playing under the franchise tag, and that was a $24 million cap hit. Certainly, the cap hit will reduce by some amount for the Jacksonville Jaguars and Josh Allen there. So that clears up cap space. And this was a team that already had over $18 million in cap space. So they can certainly afford to be active in free agency or maybe even the trade market. Maybe they go try to get a wide receiver one. Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, who knows? But wide receiver one, in my opinion, remains a large need for this football team. Getting Trevor Lawrence, that super reliable outside receiver. Yes, Christian Kirk is a high volume target in the slot. Evan Ingram, same thing as a tight end. You have Gabe Davis can be a vertical threat. Zay Jones has done some nice things, but I still think getting your star young quarterback a star receiver on the outside makes a lot of sense. At cornerback, you have Tyson Campbell, you have Ronald Darby, two guys that you can start. Tyson Campbell obviously probably will be a starter without question in 2024, but he has on an expiring contract, final year of his rookie deal. So I think you can definitely add to the cornerback room. Edge depth, you have Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker. You signed Travis Gibson as a backup as well, but I still think you can get some edge depth. And then offensive line and defensive line depth, right? You have most of your starters locked in there, all of your starters locked in really, but I think you can definitely add depth and talent to those rooms. Putting on my Trent Baalke thinking cap. How do I look like the smartest guy in the room? Because I've been convinced that Trent Baalke is always trying to do that. I think landing a top 3 wide receiver would certainly do it. Also, trading for Brandon Ayuk or a T. Higgins could certainly make him feel much better about losing Calvin Ridley. I think some way, somehow, Trent Baalke is going to land a player that this team can sell as an outside wide receiver one. They know they don't have that right now. Bottom line, they're aware of that. So I think if you're talking about making a draft day trade, if you're talking about landing a true wide receiver one in 2024, I think you're going to have to trade up, because while I do believe Adonai Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman, these guys have the potential to be wide receiver ones, I don't necessarily think that you're getting that surefire thing with the 17th overall pick. So I think trading up makes a lot of sense if you can do it. I say trade 17, 48, and a future third to the Giants to get all the way up to 6. The Giants have a ton of holes to fill on their roster. Yes, they could go get a quarterback in round 1, but I think they would be smarter to potentially land more draft capital, continue to fortify and build that roster out that has a lot of holes before they drop in another young quarterback and, potentially have the same thing that happened to Daniel Jones happen to their new quarterback. So the Jaguars get up to 6 overall to land Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. Everything this offense could ask for, Rome Odunze brings. Size, route running polish, and savvy, catch radius, ball tracking down the field. He can adjust incredibly well to the football in the air. Physicality before and after the catch. Super consistent football player. He would be perfect for Trevor Lawrence and this Jaguars offense. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that the Jaguars, they've been linked to receivers a lot throughout this offseason. Hasn't quite materialized outside of the Gabe Davis contract, which is, again, more of a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type of guy in this offense, in my opinion. And I do think the Jaguars have a receiver core that can survive throughout a season, but adding Rome Odunze would really set this group over the top and, again, give Trevor Lawrence that group of weapons that looks like a Super Bowl caliber group. I think Rome Odunze is ready to be a 1,000-yard receiver from day one. That's how good he is. Now, you lose your 48th overall pick, obviously your second-round pick, but you still have your third-round compensatory pick. That's where I say the Jaguars go get cornerback Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon. This is a player, older prospect, no doubt about it, but he's got the length, the aggressiveness, the play demeanor, and the physicality to play press man coverage in a Ryan Nielsen defense. I think he can do that very well. And getting him in the third round makes a lot of sense. Him dropping down the board a little bit based on his tape, I think he should be a second round type of player. But again, so much older than most prospects at I think 25 years old. So Kyrie Jackson makes a lot of sense for the Jaguars at 96 overall. At 114 overall, edge Jalix Hunt, who the Jaguars are hosting for a top 30 visit out of Houston Christian. This is a guy that used to be in the secondary. But he has incredible length, incredible explosiveness, bend, a raw prospect. There's no question about it. But a guy who the flashes are there, and we've seen Trent Baalke take swings on guys that have incredible talent and flashes on tape. You've seen him do that with the first overall pick. Jalix Hunt is no Trayvon Walker, but in terms of a lighter edge who could potentially be a designated pass rush type, Jalix Hunt in the fourth round seems like a Trent Baalke type of pick. And then at 116 overall, offensive lineman Brandon Coleman. The Jaguars love versatility. Coleman has started at tackle for Texas Christian, TCU. He's also played guard. I view him as a guard at the next level, but because he has guard tackle versatility, I think the Jaguars could really value what he brings to the table. And continuing to fortify the depth on the offensive line to make sure that it doesn't crater the way it did in 2023 is important for the Jaguars. At 153 overall, defensive lineman Christian Boyd. This guy is a bowling ball of butcher knives, as I mentioned on the channel yesterday. A guy that's 320 pounds, 6'2", but explosive as hell getting off the football. A guy that brings power, brings natural leverage, and a variety of pass rush moves and a hot motor to build out the depth on that defensive line. A guy who can create penetration, but also hold up at the point of attack. Very versatile, very balanced. I think he fits the Jaguars to a T. At 212 overall, offensive tackle Garrett Greenfield out of South Dakota State. Greenfield is a guy that has very good length, very good size, very good athleticism overall. I don't think he should be available at this point in the draft, but a guy, small school, very talented offensive tackle class. Maybe he slides down the board. He could be either your swing tackle of the future or a potential starter, depending on how he looks once he gets to Jacksonville. You have Cam Robinson and Walker Little both on expiring contracts. I'm not against bringing one of those guys back following the 2024 season, certainly. And if that's the case, Garrett Greenfield could be your swing tackle. If he impresses you enough, though, throughout 2024, he could potentially be a starter down the road for you, opposite Anton Harrison. At 236 overall, linebacker Jamal Hill out of Oregon, who has visited with the Jacksonville Jaguars. To me, he is a coverage backer, a specialty type player, does not fit the run super well. He's a very sound tackler, but I think the vision against the run, trying to shed blocks, he kind of gets lost in the shuffle a bit. I don't think he's a base down player, but a really good coverage backer who has a lot of special teams experience, and I just think makes a lot of sense for the Jaguars. Obviously, they've shown interest in him. I think that would be a Trent Baalke type of pick there at the end of the draft. Now, is this the type of draft class that can help vault the Jaguars into contention after missing the playoffs in 2023? I think so. Odunze is immediately the most talented outside wide receiver on the Jaguars roster, and really the most talented outside wide receiver that Lawrence has played with. It's including T. Higgins, in my opinion. That is the most important thing here in this mock draft. And there's a lot of different ways the Jaguars could go about this 2024 NFL draft, but I think landing a Rome Odunze is among the best options for the Jaguars. He gives you flexibility to get cheaper at receiver in the coming years when the Lawrence deal is going to start eating up a ton of cap space. So I think Rome Odunze would be, a fantastic option for the Jaguars. Keep in mind, this would be the most draft capital that Trent Baalke has ever given up in a trade, but he might just believe that Rome Odunze is worth it, and I wouldn't really blame him for that. Then you fortify the secondary a bit with Kyrie Jackson, which I think you should also continue to do in free agency with the cap space that you have. You don't have to add a bunch of star type of players, but continue to add players that you feel comfortable getting on the football field if need be. And then you add depth and talent across the offensive line and the defensive line. That's going to help this football team down the stretch as well. And of course, we could not add a linebacker at some point. It is a Trent Baalke draft overall. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you enjoyed the content here, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Y'all have a good one.